I'm Pima County Attorney Laura Conover, and welcome to the People's Office podcast. Our goal here is to share and discuss some of the most important information and issues affecting Pima County today. We're having real conversations and reflections on what you care about as we do our part to create change in the justice system.
Welcome back to the People's Podcast at the Pima County Attorney's Office. But as you can tell, we are not at the office. We're not in my office. We decided to flip the script this morning and visit my alma mater at the University of Arizona, both undergrad and the law school, obviously. Bear down, go Cats. It's my honor and privilege to be invited here this morning. There's a class that exists now here called, give it to me again, gentlemen.
Leadership and Judgment.
Leadership and Judgment, not a class that existed while I was here. I think the concept sounds fantastic. And so three L's invited me in, and by 3L, we mean that they're in their third year of law school. The light at the end of the tunnel is coming in May, graduation, very, very exciting. And they're doing a project where I think everybody in the class kind of chose someone out in the community to interview. So speaking of flipping the script, they have written the script. I'm answering the questions, which is odd. I love to bring in subject matter experts on topics that get suggested, and it gives us a chance to get into the weeds on something because the law and sound bites don't go together. It's very hard to explain really complex things in little sound bites. So we get to dive a little deeper. So again, it's my privilege. I'm honored to be the guest of Nick Flores, Justin Bowen, and Christian Freeman here at the law school today. As always, with a huge shout out to the woman that makes all the work and the magic happen, Chandrea Thomas, our comms director. So as I've been told and as I've vaguely seen, the three gentlemen wrote out some really thoughtful questions. I glanced at it, but as y'all know, I prefer to not ever prepare answers or even spoken remarks, as you all know. I prefer for it to be just an authentic opportunity to listen to their questions and think about it and give the honest answer that I can. So while I believe they put in a lot of work, I haven't seen it yet. We'll all see it together for the first time. So with that, I thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to a conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, County Attorney Conover. On behalf of all three of us, thank you again for making the time, and hopefully we can learn a little bit more about you. So I kind of want to start a little bit with sort of your origin story, if you will, and with public service. Well, we can talk about the law first, what drew you to the law, then we can talk about maybe what got you into public service.
Absolutely. So my little brother and I were raised by my mama, and she instilled public service in us from a very early age. I mean, it's the first memory I have is that if we were looking at the week ahead, what hour or two was going to be spent in giving back to the community in some way, and we were in pretty humble circumstances ourselves. She was quite she was our rock star single mother and our superhero and a survivor of a great deal of life. So public service, I think, was always going to be the way for my brother and I both. I decided at age 6, when you are asked, kind of that first grade question of what do you want to be when you grow up, I said I wanted to be a helper, and that it seemed to me that I should be a lawyer. I should try to be an attorney, and I wanted to try to be a helper in that way. So then I took 3 years of finding lawyers. I'd be at a birthday party and maybe somebody's uncle was a lawyer, or, whoever I could find to ask how they did it, how it works, whether they like it, and what kind of law. So by age 9, I was saying I wanted to be a public defender. And then I arranged every part of my life thereafter to make that happen,
Right.
to go through school. We were just saying earlier, I was in like a 3-block radius for 11 years in high school and then undergrad and then here at this campus. Very thrilled with the education that I got here. I felt like it was really high quality in small classroom settings. And at that time, we were still honoring the Arizona Constitution, so it was nearly free as possible, which was a huge deal. And it allowed me to then become a public defender, and that's where the career started.
What does it mean to you to serve your community?
It's everything. I mean, I think, my life has gone through radical change in the last 5 years. I joke that running for office was clearly a midlife crisis. But the truth is, I think what it actually means is that I love Tucson and my community this much that I was willing to sort of radically alter my life, take a massive pay cut, and serve, 24/7, 365, and every single day I am reminded at some moment during the day that it's a blessing and an honor and a huge daunting obligation, a lot of responsibility. Yep. Yes.
I guess with switching roles, switching gears to what you do now from public defense work from your previous legal career, was there a specific moment or case or what was the driving factor that pushed you in that direction to run for office in the first place?
I did public defender work for both the county and then a long time in federal court for the feds. And I might have continued to do that forever. And then I finally got the joy of my life to become a mama. And he came, those first couple of years, he came with a lot of needs. So he needed to be my boss, the absolute boss, not the federal government. So I opened my own small practice, which was also, that was the first time I was doing something without a plan, for sure. And that was, it was very enjoyable. I allowed any federal client who I had represented previously, or any client, to come back if they wanted me to represent them again, if they came back in the system. And then otherwise, it was just, the door was just open. And I started getting hired on very serious and higher level cases as the victim representative. So it's sort of the third attorney in the room, representing the family, again, generally on high trauma, big loss cases, as sort of an interpreter of the system, of the reports that they were looking at, and just their advocate. And that was, obviously that was a huge eye-opening opportunity to look at the system, the criminal justice system in a county from a whole new, maybe bird's eye level. And I had always been a data geek. So I was looking at things and thinking, these things run really well, other things not so much. Modernization, reform. There's so much going on in other cities across the country that we could be trying and putting in place here. And so it clearly was in the back of my mind for a few years there. And the last thing I'll just say, and this is a project I've been working on ever since, cash bail is a system built into Arizona law. So it requires a change to Arizona law. Yes, I still have my bill that we'll continue to try to run. But I watched a hearing that was not my own. I was just sitting in court and watched a hearing where everyone agreed that the young man should come out. I mean, literally everyone in the room in an adversarial system agreed that the young man should come out. And the judge said, well, 500 is the lowest bond there is, and all that work going into trying to get him back on the work site, and he was a single father to his kids. All of it was for naught, and the hearing ended, and he went back to jail that night. And I thought, man, we got to try something new here. This isn't functioning for us and for our community and our system. So yeah, that was a moment in time where I thought,
That is,
yeah.
I'm actually writing my 3L, like a substantial paper on bail and pretrial detention, doing like a comparative analysis between that and the military system. So I've been in the weeds on this.
Wow.
So it's interesting to hear you talk about it.
I can't wait to read it if you would do me the honor.
Absolutely. It's more of a critique of the military system, but
Okay.
it draws on a lot of federal comparisons. So not a lot of Arizona jurisdiction, but it's really interesting to hear you talk about that because the more I've learned, the more that story makes a lot of sense to me.
Well, and 100% is I had come out of the federal system where the initial appearance could be like a 40-minute robust discussion of whether this person should be held or detained because it's liberty, right? It's like the foundation of our system. And then I come back to the county and it's like a 22-second, right? And I'm just like, right. Like, whoa, because that hearing is arguably the most important hearing for both defendants and victims for the rest of the case. Mm-hmm. And again, I'd come from a system where that level of thought and professionalism and detailed investigation was going into place, and then to see a radically different system was alarming. It remains alarming.
Yes.
And I'll say it's a point of it's a real point of cooperation and consternation for myself, the sheriff, and the chief, because the system keeps people in jail on nonviolent, victimless cases on tiny cash bond when they really probably should be in a hospital or in some kind of treatment facility. And then it also allows people to be accused of very violent crime, pay a high bond, walk out, and commit more violent crime. So the frustration is really high on both sides.
It sounds like a big, part of your role as a leader now is trying to inspire change and change things how you view they should be. What are the difficulties in getting people to buy into your vision and the direction that you want to take?
I think there's been a lot of time and patience. I think certainly in 2020, it was a moment for the whole country to kind of reckon with why our system works the way it does. For some neighborhoods across the country, they'd been trying to scream about the problems and the failures, for decades and decades. And I think enough people were ready for a review of the system to see if it could be modernized and reformed, that there was a lot of momentum behind that, and nationwide in 2020. And certainly with all due respect to some people who were really courageous, in 12, 13, 14, 15, and 2016 across the country. I got to come in, on the heels of a lot of hard work and data and research and study. So we're talking about a slow burn here, right? And then in actuality, I came into an agency that had been under the leadership of a two-person partnership for 44 years. And that's unusual in the country. It's even unusual in the state. Maricopa's had maybe 5 or 6 different county attorneys during that era. So to say that there were a lot of policies and cultures and norms in place that had been there for decades is still really an understatement. I mean, there were a lot of people who'd been there for 30 years. So it was a heavy lift. I'm incredibly grateful for the people who chose to stay and try. They're incredible. they might have been waiting in the wings, maybe, and discovering them, promoting them, and watching them just grow has been such a highlight. And then the hiring, because people know what we're trying to do. They're deliberately choosing our agency in a thoughtful way. And I make sure of that in like their second interview. It's a nice, relaxed conversation, but I'm making sure that they know who we are and what we're trying to do, because the work is really, really hard and stressful, and I want them to be happy and healthy. And so waves of people coming in who are interested in trying a prosecution that relies on doing the right thing rather than winning at all costs. Well, it sounds like we've come to the end of the hour, and I want to give a wholehearted thank you again, very sincerely from myself, to Nick Flores, Justin Bowen, and Christian Freeman for having me here at the law school so I could come back and see my old haunts again. A huge shout out to Chandrea Thomas, as always, for making the magic actually happen. And remember, you can give us suggestions on what you'd like to learn about or hear about for the next podcast at the information here at the bottom of your screen. We'd love to know what subject matter experts you would like for us to bring into the room, and I'm always excited to learn more. I learn every time we do this, and glad to have you along the road. This concludes the People's Podcast of the Pima County Attorney's Office.